Everybody. Happy Thursday to you. I'm actually obviously doing this little film yesterday for you. Okay, so actually on the 1st of April, even though you're watching this now on the 2nd of April. So I'm filming this as it's on April Fool's Day. I don't know if you have similar traditions from your country, but April the 1st, which for you was yesterday, is called April Fool's Day in the UK, and the tradition is that you play a joke on somebody or somebody plays a joke on you. Now, nothing strange has happened to me yet, so I apologise in advance if anything weird happens, because I can't believe that my boys are going to get through April Fool's Day without doing some prank on me. So it could happen now, could happen later, could happen much later, so be aware. So I'm wondering, did anybody joke you yesterday? Did you play any jokes on anybody? I'd love to hear about it if you did. I bet you did. I can't imagine certain people not having played jokes. Hey? Tell me all about it. Right, okay, probability. I hope you got on with that okay yesterday, because it was a new concept for us. I've left the probability scale up here from yesterday. So I'm wondering what you decided was the probability of those events that I put on your worksheet. I look forward to seeing those. I'm hoping that this week your parents might be able to send me some of your work, and I shall talk to them about that in the later part of this week. So this time it's almost the other way around. So on your worksheet 6 for today, you have got all of these words from the scale, and what you've got to try and do is think of an event that you think matches that particular statement, whether it's likely. Can you think of something that's likely? Can you think of something that's unlikely, not probable? Can you think of something that's impossible? Okay, and something from our world works better. Remember, this is a part of maths, okay? It's not science fiction that we're talking about here. So one of the most tricky ones is even chance. I mentioned this yesterday. So you know in your life what really is, it could just as easy go one way or the other. Not more likely this or more likely that. It really could go one way or the other. So you could choose something from your life that you know fits even chance well. We also used the example of tossing a coin, because mathematically that has an even chance if there are two sides that it can land on. It's an even chance that it's one side or the other side. Another thing you could use is dice, okay, a normal dice. So we know that a normal dice has dots going from 1 all the way up to 6 dots. Yeah? So we've got, okay, so we've got our numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, not left myself enough room, 5, 6. Okay, ignore those words, we'll come to those later. Okay, so the chance of you rolling a 6, you'd have to decide where that would go. Okay, but it's certainly not an even chance. Even if you said, well, whenever I play something, half the time I get a 6. Mathematically, it's still not an even chance, okay? Because you've got the same chance of getting all of those numbers. So to roll a 6, there's only 1 out of 6 chances that you're going to get a 6. So it's not an even chance. Okay, you can decide where it would go rolling a 6. And it's the same for any individual number. Rolling a 3 is not an even chance that you're going to roll a 3. Okay, so what could we think about with dice that would be even? Now there are different ways of doing it, but an idea that you could use is if you think about even numbers and odd numbers. Okay, let's think about the even numbers. Yeah, so which are our even numbers here? You tell me. Got a couple of seconds. Yep, well done. So, a 2, a 4, and a 6. Okay, they are the even numbers. Now, there are 3 even numbers. And you can see that's left us with 3 odd numbers. So, the chance of me rolling an even number, I've got half a chance, haven't I? I've got an even chance of getting an even number. I've also got an even chance of getting an odd number, which is really confusing me. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm putting my normal dice in the pot. Okay, so normal dice, promise, promise. What do you think I'm going to get? Even or odd? Okay, and we all know it's just as likely to be one or the other. Okay, so I can see what I've got, but I'm not going to tell you, okay, whether it's an even number or an odd number, because you might think, oh, that means she's got more of a chance of getting one than the other. I had exactly the same chance of rolling an even number or an odd number. Tomorrow, if I remember, I'll tell you what I rolled. Okay. If you put something impossible, it has to be totally impossible, okay? And certain, totally certain, not almost certain or almost impossible, but anything you state for those, it's got to be spot on. So, I don't know, for instance, Mrs. Heyman wears 1 frog earring and 1 bat earring today. So you might think, oh yeah, that's impossible. Are you sure? Or is there an even chance? Oh, the chances are going up. There's a frog one. You know what's coming next, don't you? Now, if this is a bat one, we suddenly go into the realms of certain. At the moment, it's kind of likely that this might be a bat. Let's see. Ta-da! So, Mrs. Heyman wears 1 frog and 1 bat earring, suddenly becomes certain. Okay. I don't know what else it could be. Do you have a Nerf gun bullet in your bed? Now that one totally depends on your personal situation as to whether that's impossible, you have no Nerf gun bullets in the house, certain because you've already found one, or somewhere in between because you know, you and your bed, how likely it is that you find Nerf gun bullets in your bed. You can guess where I am on that scale, unfortunately. Okay, I will also be putting on Matifique some probability exercises, at least 1 or 2. So have a look at that, hopefully, if you have time, have a look at that. The only thing is they're going to be the most recent one, and you'll know that in order, as far as I know anyway, in order for you to do those, you will have had to have done the ones I've already set to get to the newest ones, the most recent ones. Okay? Anyway, I'm bobbing those on tonight or first thing tomorrow morning so that you've got probability work to do in Matifique as well. Projects. Oh, your heritage projects are so beautiful so far, the ones I've seen. I'm learning loads and it's an absolute joy to look at those. So well done those people that have got theirs finished. They look fabulous. Well done everybody who's working away on them. Good. If they get finished and on time, fantastic. If they're not finished quite on time, do not fret. They get finished when they get finished. Okay. Right, writing for the L1s. So if everybody else can just bear with us a moment, but this will do you good to have a little look at what we're going to do next. The L1 English children should have planned their version of chapter 5 of The Firework Maker's Daughter, and they should be thinking about starting to write that up properly on a piece of paper, or maybe they're going to do it on the computer, no problem. They should be starting that today. They might finish it, but they've also hopefully got some time tomorrow to finish off. So that should give them an idea roughly of if they know how much time they've got, how long their chapter should be. Okay. I would imagine it's going to be about a page. Okay, that's my idea, but it could be a bit less, or it might well be a bit more. Okay, depends on you and your speed, okay? And that's absolutely fine if you're a slower worker. Do not panic. As you're writing, I warned you yesterday, I'm going to really be focused on your description, okay, of the grotto and anything that Leela comes across in the grotto. So that's going to be the main thing I look at. I also obviously want it to make sense. Whenever we do any writing in class and we talk about what are the things the reader is looking for, making sense is normally top of that list, okay? So even though it's clear in your head what's going on, are you making it clear to somebody who's reading or listening to your chapter what's actually happening, or are you just confusing them? Okay, so be clear. I will be looking at your punctuation. So let's have a little look at a couple of sentences I've put up behind me, just ones that could be in somebody's chapter. And there are a few problems with these sentences. In fact, they're not even sentences yet because they haven't got any capital letters or full stops. And there might be other things that are wrong with them apart from punctuation. Let's have a little look and see if it gives us some ideas. Okay, so if we move on from the odd and even numbers and we come down to here. Leela could hear a funny sound. What is that? She said. Or maybe, what is that? She said. I think that's how I want it to come across to the reader. Leela could hear a funny sound. What is that? She said. Okay, right, what are you spotting? Hopefully you're spotting all sorts of things that need sorting out. Some of them are obvious and some of them are things that possibly we could improve on. So spelling wise, I think we've got a word that's spelt wrong. It's a homophone problem. One of those words that when we say it, it sounds the same as the word we want to use, but we've chosen the other spelling for that particular word. Leela could hear. It's the wrong here, isn't it? I want hear with your ear, not here, okay? Here. So do you remember the little clue? Let's put ear inside here. Very dodgy handwriting, Mrs. Heyman, but on the wall it's a bit tricky. Okay, so that's our spelling mistake sorted out. We talked about making sure we've got capital letters. So we need to think about where our sentences start, don't we? Okay, so we've obviously got to come here, haven't we? And this is a double whammy mistake because not only is it missing a capital letter because it's the beginning of the sentence, it's a proper noun. It's the name of our character. So I definitely want that to be a capital L, don't I? Okay. Is this all one sentence? Leela could hear a funny sound. What is that? She said. There was a break when I said it to myself first time round. Leela could hear a funny sound. What is that? She said. These are actually two separate sentences. Okay, they just happen to start on separate lines. I could have maybe put that up here, but this was the end of the first sentence, so I need a full stop there. Leela could hear a funny sound. What is that? She said. Okay, so this is the beginning of my new sentence. So this one I can actually extend into a capital W. Okay, what else do I need to improve on? I can hear all sorts of, in my mind, I can hear you all shouting out different things and I'm saying, put your hand up, let's get the lolly sticks out. I can hear somebody telling me that this is a question. What is that? What is that? She said. Now the question actually finishes here. So this is where my question mark needs to go. Okay. What else? Somebody say we need some speech marks. Oh, very good. So we need to put some speech marks around the words that Leela says. Does she say, Leela could hear a funny sound? No, she doesn't. Does she say, what is that? She said. She doesn't say all of those words, does she? The only words that come out of her mouth are, what is that? Okay, So I'm going to put my little cuddly, curly, floating high speech marks around the words that she says, and I've kept my punctuation mark inside the speech marks. Okay, so remember that. If it hadn't have been a question, maybe she said, "Oh, I'm scared," she said to herself. And we didn't have that question mark there. We would have put a comma, okay, inside the speech marks, just as a reminder. You know these things, but after all this time at home, it's really worth reminding each other about these things. What else? My punctuation is almost right. This became a second sentence, didn't it? And we've got Leela's sentence, what she said. What is that? Inside our writer's sentence. So we need to finish off that sentence there with a full stop. Okay? So now I'm happy with my punctuation. Are there any things I can improve upon? What do you think? Is there any better words that we could use? Any better adjectives or any overused words? Oh, somebody mentioned that maybe we can change said to a better verb. Now, what is that, she said? How do I want, if this is my writing, how do I want Leela's voice to sound? What is that? She said. She didn't actually say it. She cried it out, using it and in a frightened voice. So I'm going to get rid of said. I want to improve that. What is that? She cried. Did you hear that? Don't think that's a prank. I think that's just something collapsing in the loft. I'll deal with that later. What is that? She cried in fright. That's what I'm going to use. Can you see that? Just about. Okay. In fright. Difficult spelling pattern in that word, fright. I-G-H-T with some silent letters. What is that? She cried in fright. I'm already much happier with that sentence, and I've bobbed my full stop on the end of that now. Okay. Anything else I could improve? Leela could hear a funny sound. Well, that could be anything. It could be the one like I just heard in the loft. That was a funny sound that I shouldn't have heard. It could be a pop. It could be a crack. It could be a squeaking noise, a voice. And I'd like my reader to know a little bit more about that sound. And in my head, the sound that she heard is actually like a creaking, scratching kind of noise that could have come from a machine, it could have come from an animal. She doesn't know yet. Leela could hear so I'm going to change it to a creaking, scratching sound, noise. No, I'm quite happy with sound actually. I'm going to keep it there. Leela could hear a creaky, scratching sound. What is that? She cried in fright. Oh, I'm much happier with my writing now. I have improved it. So, L1 writers, keep your writing as good as you can make it. Okay, don't take any shortcuts. Be as specific with your vocabulary as you can. Okay, use your best words to describe something. Okay, and anybody else who does a different L1, I hope maybe you've learned something from the corrections that we've done there, we've made there. Okay, good. Okay, I think, I just also wanted to mention to the L1 writers about trying to use paragraphs. Now, we only just started on this before our lockdown situation. I've just grabbed the Just So stories here. And we all know that in a story, it's not normally just one great big chunk of black print on the page, but there are gaps, aren't there? Okay, there are gaps where the writer will get to the end of a line, but instead of carrying on the same line, they choose to go down to the next line because they're starting a new paragraph. And we talked about paragraphs being like the next step in your story, maybe because some other character comes into the setting, maybe because some time has passed, a moment later, the next day, in the afternoon, later on, when she woke up. Sometimes it's because a character starts to speak that we start a new paragraph. Most of these paragraphs that on the page that I have just opened are mainly to do with speech. But yeah, we've got then, so we know that it's a next step of the story starts that paragraph. So they went away. So if you feel that your chapter is taking a new step, and it's not going to happen every sentence, it's when you just feel, oh yeah, now it's the next bit, then it could be that you want to start a new paragraph, and you do that, remember, by starting on the next line down, okay? If, when you're reading through your work, you think, oh, I should have started a new paragraph there, and I forgot, we also learned that there's this little symbol that you can use. If you put what I call a square bracket, you see that, just in front of a word, that symbol means I realised I should have started a new paragraph, but I didn't want to rub everything out because I did lots of work. Okay, so you can always indicate that you've realised that with a square paragraph. If using the paragraph writing is just a little bit too much for you at the moment, don't worry. You concentrate on writing your chapter and getting your descriptions as interesting for me as possible. Okay? Right. Okay, let's have another Just So story for Thursday. And I've picked this time, the one I was just waving around, How the Leopard Got His Spots. Now, this one has got some really high level words in it. There are loads of words in here that I know exist, but I don't really understand them. And a lot here that I think Rudyard Kipling has just made up. Okay? So we're not going to get our knickers in a twist about tricky words. We're going to try and get the gist, the idea of the story, and enjoy all these grand words that he throws into the stories for us to enjoy the sounds of. Okay? Itchy nose, excuse me. Not long for a sneeze, I suspect. How the Leopard Got His Spots. In the days when everybody started fair, best beloved, that's you, the leopard lived in a place called the High Veld. Remember, it wasn't the low veld, or the bush veld, or the sour veld, but the exclusively bare, hot, shiny high veld, where there was sand and sandy-coloured rock, and exclusively tufts of sandy yellowish grass. The giraffe and the zebra and the eland and the kudu and the hartebeest lived there, and they were exclusively sandy yellow brownish all over their bodies. But the leopard, now he was the exclusivest, sandiest, yellowest, brownest of them all. A greyish, yellowish, catty-shaped kind of beast, and he matched the exclusively yellowish, greyish, brownish colour of the high veld to one hair. So in other words, he was exactly the same colour as his surroundings. This was very bad for the giraffe and the zebra and the rest of them, for he would lie down by an exclusively yellowish, greyish, brownish stone or clump of grass. And when the giraffe or the zebra or the eland or the kudu or the bushbuck or the bonty buck came by, he would surprise them out of their jumps and lives. He would indeed. And also, there was an Ethiopian, that's a person from the country of Ethiopia in Africa. There was an Ethiopian with bows and arrows, a exclusively greyish, brownish, yellowish man, he was then, who lived on the high veld with the leopard. And the two of them used to go hunting together. The Ethiopian with his bows and arrows, and the leopard exclusively with his teeth and claws, till the giraffe and the eland and the kudu and the quagga and all the rest of them didn't know which way to jump. Oh, best beloved, they didn't know. After a long time, that is a new paragraph, by the way, L1 people. After a long time, we're stepping forward in our chapter. After a long time, things lived forever, so long in those days, they learned to avoid anything that looked like a leopard or an Ethiopian. And bit by bit, the giraffe began it because his legs were the longest. They went away from the high veld. They scuttled for days and days and days till they came to a great forest, exclusively full of trees and bushes and stripy, speckly, patchy, blatchy shadows, and there they hid. And after another long time, what with standing half in the shade and half out of it, and what with the slippery, slidey shadows of the trees falling on them, the giraffe started to grow quite blotchy. You can imagine, because he's partly in the shade and partly in the sun. And the zebra grew stripy, because they're hiding behind the vegetation in parts. And the eland and the kudu grew darker, a bit like a suntan, with little wavy grey lines on their backs, like bark on a tree trunk. And so, though you could hear them and smell them, you could very seldom, very rarely see them, and then only when you knew precisely where to look. They had a beautiful time in the exclusively speckly, spickly shadows of the forest, while the leopard and the Ethiopian ran about over the exclusively greyish, yellowish, reddish high veld outside, wondering where all their breakfasts and their dinners and their teas had gone. At last they were so hungry that they ate rats and beetles and rock rabbits, the leopard and the Ethiopian, and then they had the big tummy ache, both together. And then they met Baviaan, the dog-headed, barking baboon, who is quite the wisest animal in all South Africa. Said Leopard to Baviaan, and it was a very hot day, "Where has all the game gone?" Now, in this sense, game means an animal that you can hunt. Okay, it doesn't mean a game that you can play. So he's like, "Where have all the animals for me to hunt gone?" And Baviaan winked. He knew. Said the Ethiopian to Baviaan, "Can you tell me the present habitat of the aboriginal fauna?" That meant just the same thing that the leopard had said, but the Ethiopian always used long words. He was a grown-up. And Baviaan winked. He knew. Then said Baviaan, "The game has gone into the other spots, and my advice to you, leopard, is to go into other spots as soon as you can." And the Ethiopian said, "That is all very fine, but I wish to know whither the aboriginal fauna has migrated." Then said the Baviaan, "The aboriginal fauna has joined the aboriginal flora because it was high time for a change, and my advice to you, Ethiopian, is to change as soon as you can." That puzzled the leopard and the Ethiopian, but they set off to look for the aboriginal flora, and presently, after ever so many days, they saw a great high tall forest full of tree trunks, all exclusively speckled and sprottled and spottled and dotted, splashed and slashed and hatched and cross-hatched with shadows. Say that quickly aloud and you will see how very shadowy the forest must have been. Shall I try and say it aloud really quickly? Blah, blah, blah. Exclusively speckled and sprottled and spottled and dotted and splashed and slashed and hatched and cross-hatched. Yeah, that does sound very shadowy. And also, just skipped it, this is a picture that Rudyard Kipling has drawn himself of how he imagined the Baviaan to look. This was a creature who Rudyard Kipling himself invented. Okay, so he's the one giving the wise advice. "What is this," said the leopard, "that is so exclusively dark and yet so full of little pieces of light?" I don't know, said the Ethiopian, but it ought to be the Aboriginal flora. I can smell giraffe and I can hear giraffe, but I can't see giraffe. That's curious, said the leopard. I suppose it is because we have just come in out of the sunshine, because I can smell zebra and I can hear zebra, but I can't see zebra. Wait a bit, said the Ethiopian. It's a long time since we've hunted them. Perhaps we've forgotten what they were like. Oh, fiddle, said the leopard. I remember them perfectly on the high veld, especially their marrow bones. Giraffe is about 17 feet high, of exclusively fulvous golden yellow from head to heel. Zebra is about 4.5 feet high, of exclusively grey fawn colour from head to heel. Said the Ethiopian, looking into the speckly shadows of the Aboriginal flora forest. Well, then they ought to show up in this dark place like ripe bananas in a smokehouse. But they didn't. The leopard and the Ethiopian hunted all day, and though they could smell them and hear them, they never saw one of them. For goodness sake, said the leopard at tea time, let us wait till it gets dark. This daylight hunting is a perfect scandal. So they waited till dark, and then the leopard heard something breathing sniffily in the starlight that fell all stripy through the branches. And he jumped at the noise, and it smelt like zebra, and it felt like zebra. And when he knocked it down, it kicked just like zebra. But he couldn't see it. So he said, Be quiet, oh you person without any form. I am going to sit on your head till morning because there is something about you that I don't understand. Presently he heard a grunt and a crash and a scramble, and the Ethiopian called out, I've caught a thing that I can't see. It smells like giraffe and it kicks like giraffe, but it hasn't any form. Don't you trust it, said the leopard. Sit on its head till the morning, just like I am. They haven't any form, any of them. So they haven't any form, they haven't got any shape, we can't see them. So they sat down on them hard till bright morning time, and then Leopard said, What have you at the end of your table, brother? The Ethiopian scratched his head and said, It ought to be exclusively a rich, fulvous orange tawny from head to heel. It ought to be giraffe, but it is covered all over with chestnut blotches. What have you at your end of the table, brother? And the leopard scratched his head and said, It ought to be exclusively a delicate greyish fawn colour, and it ought to be zebra, but it is covered all over with black and purple stripes. What in the world have you been doing to yourself, zebra? Don't you know that if you were on the high veld, I could see you 10 miles off? You haven't any form. Yes, said the zebra, but this isn't the high veld, is it? Can't you see? I can now, said the leopard, but I couldn't all yesterday. How is it done? Let us up, said the zebra, and we will show you. They let the zebra and the giraffe get up, and Zebra moved away to some little thorn bushes where the sunlight fell all stripy, and Giraffe moved off to some tallish trees where the shadows fell all blotchy. Now watch, said the zebra and the giraffe. This is the way it's done. 1, 2, 3, and where's your breakfast? Leopard stared, Ethiopian stared, but all they could see were stripy shadows and blotchy shadows in the forest, but not a sign of Zebra and the giraffe, because they had just walked off and hidden themselves in the shadowy forest. So I guess by now you're understanding this is all to do with camouflage. Hi, hi, said the Ethiopian. That's a trick worth learning. Take a lesson by it, Leopard. You show up in this dark place like a bar of soap in a coal scuttle. Ha, ha, said the Leopard. Would it surprise you very much to know that you show up in this dark place like a mustard plaster on a sack of coals? Well, calling names won't catch dinner, said the Ethiopian. The long and the little of it is that we don't match our backgrounds. I'm going to take Bavian's advice. He told me I ought to change. And as I've nothing to change except my skin, I'm going to change that. What to? Said the Leopard, tremendously excited. To a nice working blackish brownish colour with a little purple in it and touches of slaty blue. It will be the very thing for hiding in holes and hollows behind trees. So he changed his skin there and then, and the Leopard was more excited than ever. He'd never seen a man change his skin before. But what about me? Said the Leopard, when the Ethiopian had worked his last little finger into his fine new black skin. Well, you take the Bavian's advice too. He told you to go into spots. So I did, said the Leopard. I went into other spots, other places, as fast as I could. I went into this spot with you, and a lot of good it has done me. Oh, said the Ethiopian, Bavian didn't mean spots in South Africa. He meant spots on your skin. Well, what's the use of that? Said the Leopard. Well, think of giraffe, said the Ethiopian. Or, if you prefer, excuse me, lost that bit, sorry. Or, if you prefer, stripes, think of zebra. They find their spots and stripes give them perfect satisfaction. Said the Leopard. I wouldn't look like zebra, not for ever so. Well, make up your mind, said the Ethiopian, because I'd hate to go hunting without you, but I must if you insist, because you look like a sunflower against a black fence. Okay, said the Leopard, I'll take the spots then, but don't make them too big. I wouldn't look like giraffe, not for ever so. Okay, I'll make them with the tips of my fingers, said the Ethiopian. There's plenty of black left on my skin still. Stand over. And then the Ethiopian put his 5 fingers very close together, and there was plenty of black left on his new skin still, and pressed them all over the Leopard. And wherever the 5 fingers touched, they left 5 little black marks, all very close together. You can see them on leopard skin you like, best beloved. You can see them on any leopard's skin you like, best beloved. Sometimes the fingers slipped and the marks got a little blurred, but if you look closely at any leopard now, you will see that there are always 5 spots of 5 fat black fingertips. Now you are a beauty, said the Ethiopian. You can lie out on the bare ground and you look like a heap of pebbles. You can lie out on the rocks and look like a piece of stone. You can lie out on a leafy branch and look like sunshine sifting through the leaves. And you can lie right across the centre of a path and look like nothing in particular. Think of that and purr. But if I'm all this, said the Leopard, why didn't you go spotty too? Oh, plain black is best for me, said the Ethiopian. Now come along, and we'll see if we can get even with Mr. 1, 2, 3, where's your breakfast? And so they went away, and they lived happily ever afterwards, best beloved. That is all. Oh, and now and then you will hear grown-ups say, can the Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard his spots? I don't think even grown-ups would keep on saying such a silly thing if the leopard and the Ethiopian hadn't done it once, do you? But they will never do it again, best beloved, because they are quite happy as they are. There. Never knew that's why the leopard had his spots. Now we do. It's all made up. Right, so that was our Just So story for today. Good luck with your work today. I hope you are enjoying it and not finding it too tricky. And I shall catch up with you guys tomorrow, and I shall see you soon. Bye.